answering fantasy basketball questions. It's over for Bill Al-Koulibaly. Is it over for Paul George? Michael Bolton? Michael Bolton. That's not a real person. The person is Michael Bolton. He thinks so.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and hey lovelies, I just thought I'd jump on here, answer all your questions, just see what was going on. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Also, check out LockedOnDaily.com, and you can find the best newsletter for your favorite team. It is free 5 days a week, LockedOnDaily.com. You're all double banging over here, I know. I hope so. Anyway, that would be great if you were doing that. And if you're not, you probably should have a think about life priorities, where you sit, what you actually stand for as a person, as a man, because all those things I think are going to end up being important to you when you reassess your life down the track. All right, we're here to discuss fantasy basketball, discuss the questions that you guys have, to figure out where we sit and how we deal with this stuff that is going on at the moment. Dennis says, do we add, am I on the right screen? I'm not, I bring the screen up. Dennis says, do we add Cole Anthony or Brandon Williams for the rest of the week for steals? I believe Williams is a better steals guy than Anthony. There is always the risk, though, with both of those players, honestly. There is a risk with them not playing. Anthony's dealing with a foot thing, and Williams is dealing with A, the hamstring, and B, the limited games. As a general rule, like, that makes it tough, right? Because you don't know who is going to play and how many games they're going to play. The thing that would give the advantage here, right, is that from today onwards, the Magic play 3 games and Dallas play, if I can find the thing, they play 2. So in nearly every situation, you're talking 2 starting point guards. So Williams is probably a better steals guy. But if you get 50% more game time, that's really hard to go over. That's hard to go past. And yeah, Cole might sit a game. But if Cole sits a game, he goes from 3 to 2. If Williams sits a game, he goes from 2 to 1. So just like that, those one game over an 80-game season means nothing. One game between 2 to 3 is huge. So the 3 games from Cole Anthony usually should trump Brandon Williams in that sort of a spot. Bro, do I move on from AD for Champagnie or Orlando Robinson playoffs the next week? Category League, yeah, so you're in a terrible playoff setting. That's not your fault, I'm sure. What do you do with AD? Like, I don't think he's coming back. But, yeah, that could be terrible advice because maybe he does. Now, they only have 2 games next week anyway. I think that if you pulled the plug on AD 4 weeks ago, you'd be feeling pretty good about it. I think that you can make those moves. But do you have to do it right now, I guess, is the question. I think you probably do because Champagnie and Robinson are going to be pretty hot pickups. I don't mind that. There is obviously a risk involved in it. Punatorn Jom Jumron says, do you think that Lauri Markkanen is going to play all of the games the rest of the season because of player participation policy? Absolutely zero shot. No way in the world that'll happen. He will sit back-to-backs. He will still have many rest days. It will happen. They will not be dissuaded significantly by this. That he will still play, and they've got a lot of difficult opponents to play. He'll play probably more than he has, but he's not playing every game. That's just not happening. Apad Trends says, is Paul George's season over? Yes. There's no chance that the wording of that report, which I'll go through and just read now, that just dropped now, from Shams, Philadelphia 76ers forward Paul George is consulting with doctors this week on treatment options for his groin and knee injuries, including a possible procedure, sources tell ESPN. A decision is expected early next week. Don't worry about early next week. I'll tell you the decision right now. He's not playing another game this season. It is done. It is over. You do not put out a report. You do not leak a report like this when Paul George is subject to the rules and conditions and terms and conditions, the T's and C's apply, of the player participation policy that would mean that he would have to play games if he's healthy. You do not leak this report out citing multiple injuries that he has suffered this season, saying a procedure is happening if he intends to play this season. It is not happening. honestly, I will get like my Raptors injury report for their second year shooting guard. That's what I'll do. I will get him. Yeah. I'm sure you can decode what I'm talking about because there is no way that is not what that means. It is coded language for, yeah, he's done, guys. You just don't put that report out. What is he fighting through to play for? He's done. In Basketball Monster, in our projections, I just went through and said, zeros, done, finish, it's over. I cannot sit here and do this show for 14 seasons or whatever it's been and read these things so many times with team context. I'm not saying that you don't know this because I know you do. I just want to make this very, very clear. That statement, I would say 1 in 10,000 chance that Paul George comes back. Maybe I'm horribly wrong and I've said, hey, I don't think Davis is playing. And Davis has got way more of a chance of playing than Paul George, by the way. And George then comes back and he dominates down the stretch. It seems incredibly unlikely. It just doesn't make any sense that statement gets put out for Paul George to suit up on Monday. Go, all right, boys, what's happening? How's it going, chat? We up? We ready? Don't think so. Tony Chin says, aside from schedule concerns, is Boner a safe pickup? Are his minutes safe as long as Poole and Maxey are out and Oubre is minimized? I actually don't think that Boner's minutes have anything to do with those players. Boner is a center. Maxey's their point guard. Oubre is playing the 2. Paul George plays a little bit at the 3 and the 4. I don't think it really makes that much of a difference. Honestly, it's a slight difference. If George is out, then Yabu plays more at the 4, and that opens stuff up for Boner. And he's a tough one, right? If we got 25 a night from Boner, we're in everywhere. And as we can see, the direction they are going, he's going to get run here. So much like Orlando Robinson in Toronto, even though he currently is a backup, or in Boner's case, a third stringer, it is transitioning very clearly, I think, into him having at least a 24-minute-a-night role here. So, yeah, I would be okay with that. What is my strategy to prepare for next week? I'm guessing you mean because your playoffs start next week. Realistically, what you need to do is look at the schedule. And the schedule's weird next week. This is the number one thing anyone can do for next week. Because you have a 10-game day, an 11-game day on Wednesday, 10 Monday, 11 Wednesday, 10 Friday. Okay? I want you to look at those days. And you need to see, with the way your roster currently sits, do you have streaming slots? Do you have everyone active? Because on Wednesday, with 11 games on, I would say probably not. On Monday and Friday, with 10 games on, I would say you might have all of your active spots filled, but no active players on your bench, which means it still is a streaming day. Because then that determines the way you approach the week. Which days do you use? If you're actually blocked out on 3 days, then you've got to then you go heavily into a 2-slot stream, maybe even a 3-slot stream. You want to max out games. But you need to figure out what days you can do it on so that you know how many slots to use and when to use those moves to get as many games in as possible. That is your first prep step for next week. What days, does Monday, Wednesday, Friday, does it work for me? And then work backwards from there. You just want more games in. Just plan it out. How do I max out my games? And the more days you have blocked out, so if you can't stream, say, Monday and Wednesday, well, that means that you go from a 1-slot stream to a 2-slot stream. And then you get more games in that way. And be ruthless on the cuts. That's the best way. Joel, it's really hard. Look, these questions, right? And I know that people ask them with solid intentions, but if you don't know the answer to this, then I don't know it either. And this is not like from a negative perspective. Like, will they play the rest of the week? I got no idea. No, honestly, no idea. No idea. I would say that the next game that the Raptors and Jazz plays against each other, these guys aren't playing. That'll be my guess. And the Jazz have to be very careful with Lowry. He might play 21 minutes or so. The Raptors, I think, considering none of those guys apart from Barnes is part of that PPP, these guys are all out for the Raptors. The Hornets and Mark Williams, it's hard to judge. I think he'll be okay, but I don't know. It's really going to be hard to know. But looking at the common sense of it all, I'd say there's no shot the Raptors guys play. And I think Markkanen will be pretty significantly limited in that game on Friday especially. With RIQ and Pirtle drops, will they rest every other game for the rest of the season? We detailed this yesterday, Forrest, that the Raptors, out of their final 16 games, they have 14 games against bad tanking teams. So I would, as much as I like what Pirtle has done, as much as I like Quickly as a player and as a fantasy asset, I would be stunned if these guys play 50% of the games. I would be floored at this point if they play 50%. There's almost no way. The only caveat I have to that is that the team is just too good, and they're bad, but they're too good that they win too many games, that even if they lost every game rest of the season, they can't drop down. Then they say, all right, maybe we play them. So it does get tough. But like we've said all along, and for the last 3-4 weeks we've been talking about it, if you drop Quickly and he ends up playing 2 games a week or 3 games a week, but you can use that slot and get 6 games in, then it doesn't matter that he's better than the players you use, because doubling up the games gives you a W. So in the large majority of cases, now if I'm in a roto league, if I'm in a games cap scenario, if in a weekly league, you can't trust these guys at all. So you don't worry about it. In a roto situation, you do hold until we get more of a concrete idea. And again, that's the thing that does work against the Raptors. They play so many bad teams, they just might win too many games that makes it impossible for them to actually drop down. Meaning they just say, well, what am I doing? But yeah, as an overall general rule, sure, drop them. It's hard to see how they will maintain the value. You can maintain value, though, with today's sponsor, and that is FanDuel Sportsbook. We are heading towards March Madness, and FanDuel is here to give you the chance to get in on the action like never before. New customers on FanDuel can get $200 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet, and when it wins, that is $200 extra bucks you can use on buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories, betting who you think is going to cut down the nets in March/April. You can pick the favorites. It's easy to do. Who's my favorite team? Do I pick based on colors, mascots, alma maters, players that I hate? Do I just pick against Duke? Is that the way to go? I don't know. Or you can pick the underdogs. Do whatever you want, as long as you win and get that $200 in bonus bets. So go to FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay. Am I having more fun or less fun watching the NBA playing fantasy basketball this season versus last season? About the same to me. I think the quality of basketball this season is higher. We have, as humans, we have recency bias stuff, right? Where we go, oh my God, everything is worse this season than last season. And I'll guarantee you, people said the exact same thing last season. And people said the same thing the year before that. And people said the same thing the year before that. And people said the same thing the year before that because they hyper-focus on a couple of things. Yeah, it's been pretty rough for Toronto recently. It's been bad for Utah most of the season. But honestly, for every other team, it's been pretty standard. There's high-quality games all the time. Like yesterday, we had 2 absolute bangers between a team that we thought would be tanking their asses off. Portland and the Knicks, what a game. We had Boston OKC play. Cleveland is cooking teams. Yeah, we've got a couple of ice. The Wizards are terrible, but they're playing everybody. The Hornets, they're bad. They're actually also playing everybody. Nearly all of it. Now, Philadelphia was also moving into this zone, but this is happening like now. Right now, at this point, and it's largely because George has had multiple injuries. Maxey fell on his back, and it's a bit of an excuse, and Embiid's done, right? These things are not controllable. But I think we do get into a situation where we over-exaggerate exactly what's happening right at the moment, when I don't think overall, and I'll look at this, and I do it every year, and we go back and we look at where were the guys ranked this point in the season versus this point, and see how it looks, and try and compare it. But I think it's relatively the same. You look at like teams who realistically don't have hope. Atlanta, Chicago, all their guys are playing. Nothing is changing with those guys. Brooklyn, what are they doing? Everyone's just playing. Like we go, oh my God, the whole thing. Everyone just sits every game, and then our example is Utah. Okay, but what about every other team? And because that'll impact us, because we've drafted Walker Kessler, and we sit there and go, bloody, he's 23 years old, where is he playing? Everyone's sitting all the time. And again, this is not directed at you, point of time, but I think it's just a general malaise that strikes through because you've worked so hard and you've been the best team all year, and then the playoffs come, which again, just if that's your problem, just set your league up differently, play roto or play a situation. I always find it funny when people are like, man, yeah, but look, I've been top all season. Well, then that's what you should reward. If that's how you believe it. If you don't believe in playoffs, then just have it a different way, because that's how playoffs work. Playoffs don't just give the title to the best team. They give the title to the team that won the individual playoff matchups. So I think, again, we over-exaggerate and overreact to things happening at the time, when I can find a million different situations here where, again, these teams are bad, but the guys just all play. They're just bad. I know that many of you would debate that, and that's okay. If the Locked On Fantasy Basketball format was universally adopted, and people don't know what that is a games cap format. We have unlimited moves, but you can only play 40 games per week, which I think, again, is not perfect, but I think it is a much better format. Nicholas says, wouldn't that make some of your content, like the in-depth streaming show, less useful and be a loss for your work? No, Nicholas, it wouldn't. Well, okay, it would, but it wouldn't. Yes, it would. I wouldn't sit here and do streaming shows and say, this is the guy that you stream at for these days to get the games in. But you know what I do? I just adjust the content to do things that favor the more common and better format. The idea and the focus on stuff would just be different. We'd just be talking about, okay, this guy's got a nice little chunk here. We could use him and he would actually become startable for us over the next 5 days. And we'd use this guy. Oh, he's got a shot at rest of season, top 120 value. You might want to grab him. And then you can sit him on your bench for the next week or two and we see where it develops. Like we would have said, and I did say this 3 or 4 weeks ago. I said, hey, I guarantee you at some point we're going to talk about Orlando Robinson on the cover of the streaming show, and he is going to be useful for us down the stretch. And if we were talking about all leagues being games capped, then I would sort of said, look, we're just grabbing him and sitting on him. But that is 5% of people playing fantasy. So yeah, it wouldn't make my content less. It would just change what we do as we focus on the things that people need. Okay? That's how I think that would approach. Is Gabe Vincent an ad in 12-team categories? Only if you hate yourself, honestly. Only if you hate yourself. No. He had a really good game last time where he hit 1 million threes, but no way would I trust that. Why is Torian Prince only 6% rostered in Yahoo, Josh? Chiefs Graphics, really good question. I'm glad you asked. It's because he's terrible. That's why. He's really bad. And 6% is probably over to me. He's bad. He has been bad all season. That gives me impetus to look up Torian Prince rankings on the season. And we could look at even timeframes. He is an interesting stream in deeper formats when we're talking threes, but he's bad. Like that's why. Let's have a look. Where is Torian Prince? He is about 210th for the season. That's why. He's bad. Okay. Do you drop Khalil Ware for Vanderbilt? Would I drop Khalil Ware? Yes. I dropped him today in our head-to-head Roto Hybrid League. I'd been holding him for a bit. I moved on. He's done. I'm in the playoffs. He's got to go. Would I drop him for Vanderbilt? Now, obviously, the Lakers have an incredibly big, chunky schedule here. I would try to find somebody better than Vanderbilt, but the overall point of your question there versus being very hyper-specific, would I drop Ware? Then yeah, he's absolutely droppable if I find the right player in there. Is Vando him? Debatable. Is it reasonable to drop Oubre to add Keyshawn George? I would do that 1 million times out of 1 million. No, not a problem at all. Here we go. I like this question. This is a little bit off from fantasy, but I think if you hyper-focus on fantasy and just say, well, I need fantasy numbers. Who do I add, drop? Who is trade for trade? Give me players, hold hands. That doesn't help you. Right? What we want to do is more have discussions about, the more you learn about fantasy, the better you are at fantasy. The more you learn about the NBA, the better you are at watching the NBA, but the better you are at playing fantasy too. And we try and incorporate all that stuff here. So can you explain, Moo says, can you explain what you mean by a player being the team's most important player versus best player? So example, Pirtle for the Raptors. I can. Sometimes we conflate things. Or we, as a general basketball watching community or media or whatever, people say Brandon Ingram is a really good player. Okay, cool, that's cool. If me and him matched up one-on-one, or if he matched up one-on-one with 99.9% of the world, he'd cook him. No problem at all. You could put him on a team and give him the ball all the time and he'd score 25 points. You go, look what he averaged, 25, 5, and 5. Unbelievable stuff. And the team wins 10 games and loses 70. Because that's not a good player. It's a guy that can score in those specific situations. He's a good scorer. What do I mean by most important? Basically what I'm talking about, we'll use the Pirtle example. I can even use the Jalen Suggs example. Like, no one in a million years would say that Pirtle is the Raptors' best player. It'd be Scotty Barnes. You could argue that quickly. Some would probably incorrectly argue that it's Barrett. Right? They'd all consider better than Pirtle. But when you have one player on your team who is a good defender, which Barnes is an above average, he's not a great defender, he's an above average defender. Pirtle's a good defender. And a guy that is big, who can rebound, and who has size and is actually irreplaceable like that, that is why he's important. And you saw this all season. And this part of the year doesn't count. They are not trying to do anything positive. But anytime that Poeltl was out, the team fell apart. They gave up 1,000,000 points in the paint. They couldn't defend anything. Poeltl comes back and everything settles down, offensively and defensively. It's about being more important. Most important means like irreplaceability. If Barnes goes down, it's not great, but quickly Barrett, the usage can rise. They do a little bit more ball handling responsibility. Somebody else comes in and focuses a bit defensively, and you can sort of mix and match around it. Your ceiling's not as high, but your values, you don't lose as much. If Poeltl goes down and you had to start earlier in the season, Kelly Olynyk or Chris Boucher, you're done. You're cooked. You got no one to defend whatsoever. And it's the same with Jalen Suggs in Orlando. Once he goes down, like who is providing any of that spirit, hustle, heart, motivation, on-ball defense, point of attack defense, even shooting? The replacements aren't there. It doesn't matter that they're not the best guy or getting all of the usage. Like when they go down, then the team is cooked and the whole structure disappears. And that's what I mean by that. Is Maxey done? Daniel, I wish I knew the answer, man. Like I would say he's close to it, but I can't say that just yet. Ayton is out for 2 weeks. Okay, I'm pretty sure Ayton's not coming back this season, would be my guess. Almost no shot in my mind that Ayton returns this season, but we'll find out. Okay. Would I handcuff Poeltl with Orlando Robinson? Yeah, Ryan, look, just to talk about Orlando, I just would add him anyway. And Tim, I better get to this one before we do the next little last break. Thoughts on Justin Champagnie? Bilal's injury gives him a shot. Yes, he is an ad now. A clear ad. He will play 30 minutes a night. This is what we needed because when you play the 240 game on the Wizards, he couldn't play more than 5 to 10 minutes. It just wasn't playing time. Bilal's 33 minutes ago. They basically all just go to Champagnie, and now you're off. Bilal's done for the year. Champagnie will start. I'm guessing it could be Carrington, but I don't think it matters. Yes, he is Justin Champagnie an ad. Now, next week, again, this goes back to the earlier question we had about figuring out your schedule, because the Wizards play Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10, 11, 10 games. Would you start Champagnie on those days? Check your roster. Because if you don't, and you use him once for the week, then that is not a good ad. If you are in desperation playoff stages. If you're in games cap spots, if you're in roto, if you're in stashability, then yeah, we do it. So yeah, he's an ad very clearly, Justin Champagnie, I think, at this stage. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and got, Jesus, what happened? Where did everything go? Where is the money? You're dining out, you're going online shopping, you're going real life shopping, your entertainment stuff and subscriptions. It's easy to lose track of where the money goes. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just a budgeting app, the old Monarch Money. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So just stop managing your money. Stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. It's the all-in-one convenience of Monarch Money that you're going to love. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan those long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com. The code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Robal says, I haven't heard you address the Jalen Williams situation. He was dropped in my league, 9 cat, 10 people. Should I use number one waiver on him? I don't put really any value at all on number one waiver priority. I just think it's a silly thing to just wait. I don't know why somebody would have been so aggressive to drop him. Again, there's no context. You're going to guess they're in a desperation playoff stage, and then they panicked about the no timetable to return. I would add Jalen Williams if I had the ability to sit on a 0 for a day or two. No question I would add him. I don't think he's out that long, to be honest. I have no problem. Do Battle Royale qualifiers in Locked On Fantasy Basketball get a payout? Is it just... No, everyone. If you're in points leagues or categories and you make the Battle Royale, you get a payout. Orlando Robinson or Boner? I probably go with Robinson, I think. Is there any reasonable way fantasy metrics can be used to make decisions on NBA awards? I don't think so, no, because they don't take context into consideration. So you'll have a player who's on a really bad team and he might be incredibly inefficient or hogging all the usage that puts him up the top of the fantasy rankings. I'm actually not thinking of anyone specific here, but you could easily find an argument on this. Let me have a look at what names would come up. Like, say, James Harden's really high up in the fantasy rankings. Like, he's nowhere close to an MVP, but he's 7th in fantasy. Like that, no. So, look, short answer, no. Is there a chance Ayton plays on Sunday? No, I don't think so. Unless it's a big surprise. I do not think that's a chance at all. Do you prefer Trey Jones or Alvarado in a 9-team 12-cat as an ad for this week? I just usually go the minutes, right? So Jones is going to play 33, Alvarado might play 24. So go the minutes. The problem again is going to be the Bulls do not have a good schedule this week. We are aware of this. We know this. Chicago plays 2 more games this week. The Pelicans also play 2 more games this week. So actually we're even there, aren't we? So just go the guy who's probably going to play 66 to 70 minutes versus the guy that might top 50, which is Alvarado. So we go with that direction. Is Valanciunas a hold? Yeah, he is. And I talked about this yesterday. The time to drop Valanciunas was Monday. Because already now you've sat on his roster spot for 2 days with no games. And now we've got a back-to-back. And you do not know whether Sabonis is going to play in 1, 2, or 0 games. And you know that Valanciunas is going to play in both of those games. And there is a massive, massive chance he plays 30 minutes in one of them. He could play 30 minutes in 2 of them. So he is a very, very... Look, if you asked me this on Monday, I would have said, drop him, get more games in. Even if Sabonis doesn't return, that's okay. You're not losing that much. Now, no. An absolutely silly time to drop him at this point. Because context is really important. You have missed 2 days of streaming ability. And this goes with any sort of an injury. Right, you're waiting now to find out. Sometimes you just got to make the cut early. Like I said the other day, hey, if you wanted to get some extra games in, cut Zach Collins because it looks like Vooch is coming back. And yeah, if you miss one Zach Collins start, who cares if you're able to get 5 games into that roster slot before Collins gets benched? And again, it seems dumb, and you'll see then Collins has a game, or Valanciunas has a game, where he plays 31 minutes and he has 18 and 11 with 3 blocks. You go, man, I shouldn't have dropped him. Yeah, but what about the other 3 games that you got in before that game happened and then the 1 game after while you wait? We don't really focus enough on that stuff. So Valanciunas was a drop on Monday. He is not a drop on Thursday. And I know that sounds dumb because now we have the info on Sabonis. And we didn't back then. But now you do not drop him. After Friday, you 100% drop him. But you don't drop him now. That would be a waste. You are not gaining anything from dropping him right now. And I hope all of that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Do I drop Wendell Carter because it's a 2-game week? Yeah, look, again, 0 context, so I'm not sure. But there is no way that Wendell Carter is sitting on my 12-team roster as a must guy. There's just no way. He is so middling as a producer that I'm just not going to be interested in that. Now, from Thursday to Sunday, rest of this week, there are only 4 teams that play 3 times. There are 2 teams that play once, Knicks and Blazers. So if you play 2 games the rest of this week, it's not that much of a disaster now to play 2 games. But the advantage goes to the Nets, the Lakers, the Bucks, and the Magic, who have 3 games the rest of this week. The big disadvantage is on the Knicks and the Portland side. So that's where we're at with that. Is PJ Washington a drop? Okay. That is tough. I would actually... I think yes. And here's why. We don't know if he's coming back this week. They've got 2 more games this week. But what we do know is the most games that he can play next week is 2, which is terrible. So let's say PJ comes back not even on their next game, which is Friday. Let's say he plays on Sunday. So that means that in the next 11 days, you'd get 3 games out of him. Absolutely not worth it. Now you can say, well, what about the week, 2 weeks after that? And then, because I'm in my playoffs and I've got to buy next week, then that's a different story than you hold. But if you are talking about value right now, the most that he can play over the next, again, 11 days is 4 games. It's not enough. You know how much good I can do with that? Especially when, to me, there's only 1 day that's non-streamable. I can probably get 10 games in versus 4. That to me is, again, it's going to depend. But yeah, that's relatively easy. Is Podziemski a hold with Kuminga returning? Probably not. Probably not. A, he's injured. And you've already got guys in your IR slots. He was already just a fringy guy anyway. So no, you don't need to wait through that sort of stuff, I don't think. Okay. Let's keep going through questions. Is D. Mitch playing Friday? I don't know. Absolutely no idea. How serious do I think the Halliburton injury is? Is he back to playing? Well, yeah, he is. Can we expect him to miss games? I'm not sure. He played all the way through. He hit a game winner. It is possible that he sits games, but honestly, he came back from the injury. He was fine. It's out of my mind now. I don't care. Like, if something else comes up about it, then whatever, we adjust to it. I'm not that worried about it at all, honestly. I think Evan Mobley's going to win Defensive Player of the Year, to be honest. Not Dyson Daniels, but we'll see what they end up doing. Okay, we've still got some time for a couple more questions. I was able to grab Horford for a great game last night. Do I hold? Nope. What will happen upcoming back-to-back? He'll play one of them. And then when Porzingis returns from his deathbed, Porzingis will play and Horford will play 21 minutes. He's been playing like 35 minutes a night, and they are going to ramp him back unbelievably hard. You do not hold Al Horford. No point in that at all. No way. I would not bother with that at all. Do I think it's a bad setting to only allow a waiver move at the beginning of the day, then no moves can be made until the next day? Yes, I do. Okay. I like to make it so that fantasy basketball isn't a chore. I think that is part of, when I hear complaints about things, and I think that is one of the things people go, man, I don't want to have to be on my phone 24/7, setting alarms at 3 a.m. to wake up to make waiver. That is insane. That is stupid, and that will turn people off. And then, I know there's going to be a portion of the community that goes, yeah, it's because I grind the hardest. I'm just the biggest grinder to get my diamond status. So, yeah, I should get that advantage. And I'm willing to put in the effort and the work and put the noties on and, get it all done. But that's bad. Like that's not a good way to improve the player pool, to improve the standing, to improve the overall game, right? So, while I think it is pretty frustrating to have moves locked like that, and in particular on Yahoo, I don't like the way that they do some of their things. But I think having absolute free-for-all, just whoever's first there to get it, is the guy that gets it, is a bad system. Because again, it incentivizes someone who has got nothing else happening at that point, where they're just on their phone the whole time, versus people who might do it as a hobby with mates, have got families, got things to do, and they can't be on their phone, they lose out. And then you know what happens? They lose the interest early in the league. The league becomes less competitive. And it's not, what's the point of it? So while as a general rule, I don't love that idea of like things being locked, but as an overall competitiveness thing, that's why Fab is way better. And I'm actually thinking of even changing some stuff with Fab next season, or trying some stuff out where maybe we don't need to run it every day. Again, I want to make this is a game, this is fun, this is a hobby. We don't need to make it into a job, like that it is a full-time job to play the game, to be successful at it. I mean, to be successful, you need to be right up the top, but like, what are we doing? For our $50 buy-in, you got to make it a full-time job. I don't think that's really the best way to go about this. What Raptors guys would you consider dropping in shallow 10-team category league formats? All of them? All of them, I think. That's obviously a risky call, right? Barnes, I would likely hold, but I don't think the others are really worth it. Cheese fella, have I looked into this year's upcoming draft class? Not really. Not in enough depth. Like, I know the names of some of the guys, but no, I have not looked at stats. I have not looked at film. I have not looked at reports. I have not done any of that stuff. That is where we go super hard in that through April, May. I go hard on April. We do it on the show in May leading up to the draft in June. But no, I don't do it now. It takes away from my time of the NBA. So I don't do it. All right. Have I heard of So Rare NBA fantasy game? Yes, I have. What do I think about it? I don't like it. I don't like fantasy games as such that I know correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it sort of models the idea of My Team, Diamond Dynasty, Madden Ultimate Team, that sort of stuff, is how I understand that it works, that you have cards with value and you trade them in and you buy them and tokens and that sort of stuff. Yes? Is that true? I think that's how it works, and it involves some sort of outlay and money to get cards in and buy them and open packs, unless I'm wrong. I don't like that idea. I don't like that idea that you have access to certain cards at certain points and someone else doesn't have them, and that gives you the heads up, the leg up advantage. I don't like that. So unless I remember looking into it, and I talked with the So Rare guys a few years ago trying to see if I'd do content or sponsor or whatever. I don't like that format. Maybe I'm just wrong. Is Giddey done rest of season? No indication of that. No. Am I holding? Again, context is important here, isn't it? Because if you have 4 days left this week and it is your semi-final, and if you have a dead roster spot you are going to lose, then no, you're not holding. But otherwise, yes, I would try to. I think he's back early next week, and I haven't heard anything to suggest that he'll be out longer than that. But the context on that is a different answer for everybody. Thank you, Jorge. You can win cards, but you still need to invest to play. Yeah, so again, don't like that format at all. I don't like it at all. It's a very, very weird format, I think, and it's just trying to get in on the idea of the ultimate team setup, but that's not a good way to go about it, I don't think. All right, should we get out of here? I think we probably should. I do appreciate you guys all being here. If you drop one more question here, maybe we'll do it as a post-credit scene if I can find a good one as we just wrap up, or as I just push that intro screen up and I realize it wasn't the correct intro screen, so I apologize. So maybe we'll do one post-credit Marvel-based question, not Marvel-based question, but post-credit question at the end of the show. In the meantime, though, hit the thumb, double bang, leave your comments all down below. We'll do a preview for Friday's games coming up, and then, of course, a Thursday banging recap on all of the action. Guys, we are done here. Keep positive. Keep context. Look at your own teams and figure out how it makes sense. We're done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Roberto Hernandez comes in clutch. Cason Wallace or Justin Champagnie in 9-cat leagues. I'm going to go with Champagnie.